For many species, emitting and receiving sound clearly is absolutely essential. For that reason, there are so many forms of talking and listening among animals. Some are startling. Others are truly incomprehensible. Light, temperature, light, television, documentary. Voice sensors seem to be the latest in home or demotic technology. But what if we owe their patent to a few caterpillars? Do caterpillars hear? It doesn't seem as though they do, but if they did, how would they receive the sound without ears? Studying curious forms of animal communication, we have often asked such questions as these. And we have been led to great surprises. These future butterflies are still in their larval phase of development, eating and growing. They appear to have decided to spend this stage of their lives together. They move as a group. They all eat at the same time on the same plant. They even sleep clustered together in a pseudo-communal cocoon. Their gregarious behavior is complete. For them, number is a means of protection. The down or fuzz that covers their body is also a weapon. Like many caterpillars, they are characterized by having poisonous hair. When they sense they're being attacked, they double up violently, and activating a few special muscles, they shoot their diminutive stinging or urticant hairs. The proximity of our hands or the cameras was not what frightened them, however. And yet, we unconsciously did something which awakened their defensive instinct. What was it that caused that reaction? A little while later, it became clear to us. It was our voices. As it is assumed that caterpillars cannot hear, at first we believed it must have been the air we expelled when speaking that their sensitive hairs detected, vibrations that must have convinced them that a predator was nearby. But simply blowing did not provoke the same response. It even seemed to calm them down. It was the sound then. But no. As can be seen clearly in the images, a normal sound doesn't frighten them. Only when speaking did we establish communication. An incredible auditory behavior. Perhaps even absurd. In nature, everything has an explanation, even if it's not always discovered. In any case, while trying to solve the enigma of the caterpillars, we remembered that some nocturnal moths hear certain noises. Dr. Rode discovered this in 1956 when he was enjoying a glass of wine after a meal with friends. While many insects fluttered around the light, the naturalists played around making sounds with the glasses, the liquid, and the cork from the bottle. By pure chance, someone hit the right tone. A note that made several moths suddenly drop down onto the table and the floor. They had folded their wings as soon as they detected the noise. They no longer wanted to fly. What had happened? After much investigation, Dr. Roeder and Dr. Treat associated the idea that the moths had learned to detect the ultrasound that bats emit when flying, and they escaped their hunters by simply falling down at the last minute. The radar detection system that bats possess evolved as a device to see in the dark. It consists of emitting sound waves that, when rebounding off of nearby objects, returns information, providing a clear outline of the objects. In this way, bats can move through the night without colliding with things in the dark. Over time, This system has also served this mammal to detect its prey. The moths, however, have taken advantage of the bat system, reversing its function. Some species of moths are able to discover the bats precisely by the whistles they make to catch them. At the last minute, abruptly closing their wings, they dodge the attack. If adult moths can capture sound waves, then it doesn't seem so strange that their young, that is, when they're caterpillars, might also have a system of acoustic reception. Even if it's just rudimentary, as everyone knows, sounds are transmitted better through solid bodies or through water than through air. In water, sound vibrations can travel over great distances. Many animals emit and receive sounds underwater, but cetaceans are the real kings of subaquatic telecommunication. The complicated low-frequency singing of some whales can be detected at a distance of more than 500 miles. Their voices, the strongest on the planet, allow them to communicate among themselves, resounding from coast to coast in the ocean. At times, these infrasounds register intensities close to 190 decibels. It is thought that the sperm whale hunts giant squid using ultrasound. But the strength of the cetacean's emission comes from the basic function they have of communicating in a liquid medium. As a means of measuring the degree of intelligence of whales or dolphins, it has sometimes been suggested that graphs of their sound waves be compared, as recorded by computer, with those of the human voice. The graphic reflection of the acoustic waves of these marine mammals is even more complex than ours, so that according to this theory, either they are more intelligent or the distortion of the water is to blame. To record sounds traveling through air, it is very important to have parabolas that amplify and select the broadcast signal. Whales do not have auditory pavilions or outer ears, probably for hydrodynamic reasons. But outside of the water, a good screen with a concave shape helps the sound to be received better. In addition, the designs of the auditory pavilions of animals allow them to identify with precision where each sound comes from above or below, from the right or the left. This is essential in order to know which way to go in order to escape. The mobility of these parabolas is directly proportional to each species' need to hear. Some can orient their ears quickly and exactly to the point from which the sound is coming. That's a great evolutionary advantage which man must do manually and which gives us a strange appearance. But by directing two antennae towards the same place, one furthermore obtains a third coordinate, the distance at which the sound is produced. That is, listening in stereo. For that reason, everyone has two ears. This coyote is looking for mice that move stealthily under the snow. It can't see them, but it knows exactly where they are. Stealth is a constant in nature. Although there are exceptions. Few zoological encounters are noisier than a flock of cranes at dawn. Cranes are very gregarious and sociable. They seek refuge in numbers. The flocks sleep, eat, and move about together. They don't stop yelling at each other, even in flight. Certainly the noise from their long necks makes them feel that they are surrounded by many of their kind, and so they feel safer. Their shouting also has another objective. They mark their position while they move. This flock is about to migrate. The cold mornings of winter will soon give way to spring, and so for the cranes, it is time to go north. Their squawking helps them stay together in formation during the long trip. The idea of the cranes emitting acoustic signals to establish a reference in space is also used by man. We are able to fly airplanes in formation in part because of this invention of acoustic markers, although we have never been able to coordinate such numerous squadrons. It's a matter of emitting short and continuous sounds like those made by the cranes. Otherwise, the sound could be heard, but it would be more difficult to find exactly where it's coming from. This is what happens with the cicadas. Their deafening chirping hides the branch from which they emit it very well. That is, as long as the creature listening is not another cicada. These sonorous insects are an unfailing presence on hot, dry days. Their music is well known, and there are hundreds of different species throughout the world, each one singing in its own way. But hearing them is not the same as seeing them. Very few people have ever seen them. They are cryptic animals. That's to say, their color camouflages them well in their surroundings. And when they sing, one hardly notices that they're doing so. It seems as though they aren't moving a single muscle. How do they make their melody? The generally accepted idea is that cicadas, like crickets, rub their wings together, and the nerves of the transparent elytrums act like the strings of an untuned violin. But this is not true. The mechanism by which the cicada produces its potent roar is hidden precisely under the wings. An undulated membrane is rubbed with a very hard mobile appendage. The tension of this membrane and the pressure the insect exerts with its drumstick do the rest. In fact, before composing rhythms to enliven our dances, drums were used to send messages. It was the tam-tam language. Woodpeckers have used it for millions of years. They also are very shy animals and are very difficult to observe except during the period of their infancy. Their drumming gives them away. Their powerful beak helps them to look for worms in the wood, to make holes in tree trunks, to taste the sap, and of course, to build their nests. They work on trees like a chisel, opening holes, perforating them, and drilling them. With each impact, their brain is subjected to a deceleration unbearable for any other animal. It doesn't affect them, however. Furthermore, the sound they produce when working has ended up becoming part of their language. With it, they delimit their territories or send messages to their partners. Within their thick forests, the noise of their tam-tam travels perfectly through the vegetation to distances of more than 10 miles. On the jungle floor, there is someone who also uses percussion as a language, although its rhythm is almost imperceptible. It's thought of as a secret code, and it's not perceived with the ears. The vibrations are not transmitted by air, but rather by land. The ends of the legs of these tarantulas are hypersensitive and are equipped to interpret such subtle messages. At this moment, they are messages of love. Even among spiders, there are unrequited loves. But how and why have the feet of certain arachnids achieved such a high degree of sensitivity? The sensory capacity that spiders have come to develop in their extremities is extraordinary and surprising. In fact, certain species of spiders seem to rely exclusively on this super sense in order to survive. The trapdoor spider of the genus Stacymopus constructs a subterranean tube like so many other spiders, but it covers it perfectly with a trapdoor that hides its lair. Once finished, no one would suspect that someone lies in wait underground. But how does the spider know when prey passes by, or when it is a predator? Only by the tremor of its steps. No human seismograph would move even a millimeter for the micro-earthquake produced by the steps of a cricket. The trapdoor spiders probe the surroundings of their hidden lair by means of touch. They keep their front feet in contact with the silk that makes up the door of their hideout. And thanks to this sense of touch, the finest designed in all of nature, they await the appearance of prowlers who might be caught. The most remarkable thing is that the spider even knows how to assess when its prey is exactly at attack distance. A few millimeters further away, it doubts, but it does not decide. Only when the microtremors tell it that the prey is in the correct direction and at the indicated point does the spider emerge. Then, all it has to do is digest. For the propagation of vibrations, the opposite of a jungle would be a sheet of water, flat and without any obstacles in the way. Sound travels through the still surface at long distances without changing wavelength or frequency. The amphibians that populate this medium mark their territories by singing constantly. They don't use smells or colors, only noise, and the louder the better. For the genes of these toads, this is their to be or not to be. The males of this species have only a few days to make sure that their family line doesn't end. They must convince a few females that approach the ponds that they are the best and most suitable mates. And only by croaking can the toad offer a valid argument in the dark. The density of males is many times greater than the number of females, so that disputes often occur over the best places. The strongest choose the site. The strength of their song is achieved thanks to a sac, which they can inflate and deflate with air from their lungs. Tensing the skin under their throat, they increase the volume of air that moves through their vocal cords. The larger they make their own personal resonance box, the more the sound is amplified. Nowadays, the discovery of resonance boxes is applied to modern speakers in our hi-fi systems in the same way it was used in primitive drums. According to their tension, the membranes that vibrate offer an entire scale of musical notes. Vibrations move the air with more or less volume. Some are heard, others are not. And the same thing happens with the speed of each vibration. Those of high frequency, the fast ones over 20,000 oscillations per second, are no longer perceived by the human ear. We call them ultrasounds. The slow ones, of low frequency with fewer than 20 cycles per second, are infrasounds, and we can't hear them either. For that reason, the fact that a Western spadefoot sings does not imply that we can actually hear its whole repertoire. The toad sings for members of its species, and in so low a frequency that only its own know how to locate it. This frog can be heard in a more normal acoustic band. Anyone can listen to it. But these frogs represent a new stage in acoustic emission. Unlike the several thousand species of frogs and toads around the world, this species, along with a very few others, boasts two sacs to sing with. That is, it sings in stereo. And that doesn't mean that its song is more beautiful. Its only purpose is to establish for its fellow frogs the exact location from which it is emitting the sound. Many other animals use resonance boxes to improve their communication. The skull of the howler monkey is a good example. Their roars resound in the forest, through the trees, to a distance of more than 10 miles. The very rare bellbird is also an extraordinary case among the megaphones of the tropical forests of Central America. This bird is getting scarcer every day, and today only in the most remote hidden-away places can one have the good fortune to hear it. Seeing it is another matter altogether. At dozens of meters above the jungle floor, we were lucky enough to make one out. It was a young bird training for adulthood, from whom a few false and out-of-tune notes could be heard. It would have to wait another year before becoming a great tenor. Birds, and more concretely songbirds, would doubtless be the animals that best represent high fidelity in nature. Like loudspeakers that spread their music across land and air, they are almost always the background music in the countryside. Their warbles are almost always present, or their squawks. And along with the rest of the wild tenors, they form the great symphonic orchestra of the animal kingdom.
all, folks.